Good evening, Tuckahoe. Welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for the month of February 2019. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Nancy, please take the attendance.
Member Garrity.
Here.
Member Scalzo.
Present.
Member Palladino.
Present.
Member Jackman.
Present.
Member Fiore. Here. Chairman Greenwald.
Present. Okay, thanks. We have only a couple of items tonight. 242 White Plains Road. We have 47 Rogers Street, which is adjourned. We have 82 Wallace Street, and we have 38 Pleasant Place, who just adjourned as well. We're going to begin this evening with 82 Wallace Street. I apologize. Thank you. Here we go. We need to first approve the minutes from the meeting of January the 9th, 2019. Does any member have any comments, questions, additions, deletions? If not, I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes from the January 2019 meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
I'm sorry, we need a poll, right?
Member Garrity.
Aye.
Member Scalzo.
Abstain.
Member Palladino.
Present.
Member Jackman.
Yes.
Yes.
Member Fiore.
Aye.
And Chairman Greenwald.
Approved. All right, thanks. 82 Wallace Street, construct a new apartment building. Is the applicant present? Please step forward. State your name for the record.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Stephen Accinelli from Veneruso, Curto, Schwartz, and Curto on behalf of the applicant.
Hi.
Has there been any new information since your prior meeting?
No new information and no further comments.
Any questions from people on the board?
Just one. I don't think you hear me. When you start construction and tearing down stuff, you make sure all the property's all clear, make sure the streets are cleared. Make sure everything's all, that means you're going to get a flat tire or anything like that.
Understood, will do.
Make sure with all the fire hydrants in the area, make sure you get permission to use them. Other than that,
All right, for people at home, the question was to make sure that it was a clean construction site, there'd be no debris left in the streets, and that the fire hydrants weren't blocked. And the applicant, as you heard, said yes, they would take care of that. Thanks. One other quick note, early on, I had asked if you would be careful of the beautiful village trees up on Maynard, and you gave your word that you would, so I'm sure that you will.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate that. No other questions from the board?
None.
Okay, you can have a seat as we go through this then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For everything. Thank you. Does a member have a motion that they would like to present?
Mr. Chair,
We
I
need to
think
close the
Yeah,
public.
the public hearing's still open.
Oh, I
so you may wanna
apologize.
See if
Sleeping
anyone
tonight.
here from the public, and then you,
Anyone from the public who would like to comment regarding this application, please step forward. Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Does a member have a resolution in the form of a motion they would like to present regarding 82 Wallace?
I do, Chairman.
Proceed.
This is a resolution adopting a negative declaration under the State Environmental Quality Review Act for approval of zoning variances as part of a proposed multifamily building at 82 Wallace Street. Whereas the Tuckahoe Village Department of Buildings received a building permit application received on December 20th, 2018 for a multifamily building at 82 Wallace Street. Whereas the proposed action is the request of 4 variances as part of a plan to redevelop the existing site as multifamily housing. The proposed building will include 32 units, 48 parking spaces, 45 of which are in an enclosed garage, and landscaped areas and screening along the frontages of the property along Wallace Street, Maynard Street, and Limekiln Road. Whereas based on the Environmental Assessment Form EAF, submitted by the applicant and any supplemental materials thereto, the Zoning Board of Appeals has determined that there will be no significant environmental impacts from this action as it concerns the proposed project. Whereas the approval of the proposed action is classified as an unlisted action under Part 617 of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and whereas under Tuckahoe Village law, the Zoning Board of Appeals is the only entity that can grant a zoning variance. Now, therefore, be it resolved that, based on the information included in the EAF submitted by the applicant and any supplemental materials thereto, and the criteria contained in the State Environmental Quality Review Act and its implementing regulations, the Zoning Board hereby adopts the attached negative declaration for this unlisted action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. This resolution shall take immediately.
Thank you. Do I have a second to the motion?
Second.
Nancy, please poll the board.
Member Garrity.
Aye.
Member Scalzo.
Approve.
Member Palladino.
In favor.
Member Fiore.
No.
Member Jackman.
Approve.
And Chairman Greenwald.
Approved. Please continue.
Mr. Chairman, an area variance resolution. The application for area variance requested by Orange World LLC, whose address is 82 Wallace Avenue, Tuckahoe, Section 34, Block 4, Lots 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, for relief from the following sections of the zoning code. 4-4.3, lot area depth, provides that dwelling units based on the land area provided shall not be less than 950 square feet. The applicant proposes 32 units for an average of 848 square feet. 4-4.4.3, rear yard. There shall be a rear yard with a minimum depth of 30 feet, and the applicant is proposing 10 feet. 3. 4-4.6, maximum coverage. The sum of all areas covered by principal building shall not exceed 35%, and the applicant is proposing 49.8%. 4. 4-4.7, floor area ratio. The FAR for Apartment 3 District is 1, and the applicant is proposing 1.4. The following plans, drawings were taken into consideration and relied by this board in making its determinations. Drawings number A001, A202, A100, A110, A111, A112, A200, A201, A300, dated 5/3/2018 and stamped received December 20th, 2018. The applicant, Orange World LLC, is proposing to construct a new 32-unit residential building located at 82 Wallace Avenue in Tuckahoe. There are currently several vacant, dilapidated structures that exist on the premises. A majority of these structures are built to the front property lines, leaving no setback as they were grandfathered in by previous codes. These structures have become eyesores to the neighboring residential properties, and clearly improvements need to be made to this property. The applicant has been before this board for numerous months, attending both public hearings and work sessions. It should be noted that the applicant's original proposal called for 52 residential units with an average square footage of 522 square feet based on the lot size. Most importantly, the original proposal called for a substantial parking variance. After receiving comments from this board and the village planners, the applicant has reduced its units to 32 and has done away with the necessity of a parking variance. Further, the overall design of the building has changed dramatically based on the comments from this board. The original proposal offered a box-shaped building, and now the proposal is for a tiered building, lessening the overall visual impact of the surrounding properties. There has been little to no opposition for the project, as several residents that have spoke at the public hearing realize the need for this premise to be improved as the current condition is unsightly. We also note that the owner to the north, who this project arguably impacts the most visually, is in favor of the project. As previously stated, the village's planner, Noah Levine, has submitted comments to this board by way of a memo dated January 9, 2019. Said memo raised no concerns as to the amended project and was favorable as to the overall project and design. In particular, the memo was in favor of the tiered structure of the building, the reduction of units, and the fact that the project no longer requires a parking variance. The review further concludes that there will be little to no impact on traffic in the area. Based on the above and the analysis below, it is determined by this board that the area variance is granted as the benefit to the applicants of the area variance outweighs the detriments to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood. We have applied the 5-pronged test as follows. 1. There will not be an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, and there will not be a detriment to nearby properties. As stated previously, there are currently multiple vacant, dilapidated structures that have no setbacks that exist on the property. The proposed amended plan with the new structure with setbacks from the property will greatly improve the neighborhood and surrounding area. The project calls for substantial green space while not taxing the parking or traffic in the surrounding area. 2. The benefit sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. We agree with the applicant in that the existing property characteristics and property usage on all sides, as well as the applicable building code requirements, topography, site conditions, and character of the neighborhood, the applicant has achieved a desirable project that works and fits with the neighborhood and has minimized any adverse impact with respect to these considerations. 3. The requested variances are not substantial. The applicant, based on comments by this board, has minimized the variances originally requested. Due to the topography of the project, and that is located on a steep hill, and the size of the project, the fact that the applicant is only seeking 4 variances, we find that the variances are not substantial in the number of variance requests, and the size of the variances are not substantial. A majority of the existing structures have no setbacks as they were a pre-existing non-conforming. Thus, the setback variances now requested, even though they are not up to current code, are far better than what is existing on the lot currently. 4. The proposed variance will not have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental condition in the neighborhood in that environmental conditions such as noise, parking, and traffic and negative aesthetics will not be increased as a result of this application. We have consulted with the village planner and agree that the project will have little to no impact on traffic. Further, the amended application is not seeking a parking variance, as parking, which is important to any project, as parking is always an issue in the village. Also, as stated previously, the proposed project will be a substantial improvement to the neighborhood as to what currently exists are vacant, dilapidated structure. And 5, the alleged difficulty was self-created. Although the alleged difficulty was self-created, it is not fatal to this application. Lastly, work under these variants must be commenced and digitally prosecuted within 1 year of the granting thereof, failing which such variances shall become null and void.
Thank you. Do we have a second to the motion?
Second.
Nancy, please poll the board.
Member Garrity.
Aye.
Member Scout.
In favor.
Member Palladino.
In favor.
Member Jackman.
In favor.
Chairman Ringwald.
In favor. There you go. Thank you very much. I would again like to thank you, the architect, and everyone involved. You came before us where you did not have to. You could have built that tall square box another floor higher within your right, and you wouldn't even have to ask for a variance. But you took that into consideration, and you tiered this building, and you made it fit, and you listened to this board and to the public, and I just again want to thank you. I think you're putting up a very good building, and we appreciate the fact that you worked with us, and thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you as well. Have a
All
good
right.
evening.
Thank you very
Good
much.
luck. Thank you.
Good luck.
Typo. Yeah. I heard them. I didn't read it close enough either.
Struggling towards the end there. It's a lot of words.
I know.
Your mouth just starts mumbling there.
I know.
You sounded great. I would have fell asleep.
By the end, the words don't even look like words anymore after like page 4.
Parking of the parking, which is always a problem with the parking.
Okay. The next and final item will be 242 White Plains Road. The applicant could please step forward, state their name. For the record.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Robert Kerrigan. I'm attorney for the companions who are here, and several of the neighbors are also attending. I am speaking on issues basically of law, but I have to at least return to some of the points so we don't lose them. At least I think it's important. The companions are longtime residents. They are not seeking any sort of massive subdivision or development or use of multiple use of the land. They just want to develop a zoning lot out of their existing lot. And the board and the members have seen and heard a lot, so we're not going to, I'm not going to put too much forward other than the points that were made that, or I should say points in answer to some of the questions. At the last hearing, I believe principally Mr. Jackman and Mr. Campana, architect Campana, is going to address the traffic questions with a little further detail. But last meeting, questions were, or a question was made about the history of the zoning ordinance. And we've addressed that. I have written remarks, but I can hand them at the conclusion. They need a certain amount of editing. It was mixed up when I was out of New York, when I emailed it to Louis Campana. So I can give you these rough copy at the end, or I can redo it in final form on my letterhead and all that stuff. So I think, what do you prefer? Read along, or do you want?
Yeah, we can read along.
You want this?
Sure.
Go ahead, you go.
It's okay.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thanks.
Thank you. I think that most of what I say is going to be in there, so you don't have to detain yourself on the written, but perhaps later. As this board well knows, or residents well know, that the original zoning code was of 1930. There was here in 1960 a code that applied prior to the 1999 amendments. We know that the 1960 code had a 5,000 square foot, et cetera. Lewis will brief on the terms there. In 1999, effective July of 99, the Campana's A5 lot that could be presently then developed into 2 lots lost that opportunity as of right because of the amendments. Now, we've tried to pull out as much data, and principally Lewis's work, about what this 1999 ordinance change was all about. And that is what my letter addresses in major part. We go into some other items, but so you know, I'm addressing at one hand the ordinance as we see it, and on the other hand, there was a case mentioned by Mr. Williams, either in, I think in the work session, where there had been a similar, or what would suggest to be a guiding analogy to the board's decision. I analyzed that and suggest that it's no such analogy. So back to the,
Could you clarify why you feel there's no such analogy?
why, can I do that at the end?
Absolutely, sir.
That is the case of Rugliano, and it has no analogy. That's 297 Dante. It had 14,000 square feet with one house in the middle of it, and had nothing to do with our position.
You're welcome to wait until the end. I
Oh,
just,
thank you.
before I forget.
Thanks. But also Judge Nastasi heard the case, and he had on page 6 an important comment that applies here. The position that I'm taking here in these papers for my client on the record is that the particular 1999 changeover in Article 4 of the zoning ordinance was confiscatory, unreasonable, unlawful, unconstitutional, invalid as a matter of law. Why I say that is because our research shows that it was reverse area spot zoning. If you recall back in the sessions, Lewis put up a chart that he blacked out his parents' property. Well, all of the A5 zone in the southern portion of Tuckahoe fit into the prior to 1999 at measurements. And it was only because of the 1999 statute, not only did the Campanas lose as of right, but they were the only ones discriminated not.
So are you arguing that the village board purposely placed that zoning code to discriminate against one property, and
No.
that they did it purposely to punish a single resident? Is that what you're arguing?
No, it's
Okay.
not punishment. It's not punishment. What I'm saying is the happenstance of what happened was an aspect of why they were discriminated. I'm not talking about civil rights discrimination. I'm talking about
Oh, no.
discrimination in the use of one's land.
No, but what I want to know is, did they purposely target one resident in that?
There is a suggestion they may have targeted one residence up on Dante Avenue, 297 Dante Avenue, which was owned by Mr. Rogliano and another, and represented by Mr. Tringali. I did read the 451 pages of that record. I will come to it. But
If I may, one quick side is that your reference is to the fact that this 1999 zoning amendment was put into effect for the entire village of Tuckahoe, which contains multiple zones, but however, in the A5 zone, this is the single property affected,
Right.
correct?
that's correct.
Thank you.
And it's the only singular property that we can find of this nature. It's an anomaly, of course, but I, in all my years, have never experienced this. So, in terms of what happened.
I'm sorry, you're saying that's the only property in the entire village of Tuckahoe?
No, in the southern, I meant to say.
Just in the
southern-
one zone?
In the southern district A5 zone.
Right.
But Lewis called the southern district. Right, Lewis? That's right. Okay. So I line out here in the second page of my remarks the Bismarck and Bayville decision for my colleague, Mr. Village Attorney, Mr. Gerst, can look at if he wishes, or the board too, of course. And then I show that what happened was really repugnant to the law. I mean, zoning boards are powerful and they're important, and in our state, they are local. So one has, in most instances, the redress right within your 1 square mile or approximate. And here, there was a real divergence, as I say at the bottom of this letter, from the master plan of the time. And remember, what Lewis is showing here on this board is the Washingtonville plan that came down in the late 80s, 85. And it really didn't detract from the then zoning. And what the companions are doing is they're taking their property, which was the old, I'll call it the old roadhouse, or old, not roadhouse in the rough sense, but, you know, an old White Plains Road house. If you know them, there's one in Bronxville on the corner of Pondfield. And, you know, those white
It was the original house for the entire property area, correct?
That sounds like it. I wasn't there in 1927, but I think that it was the major house.
This development was essentially built on the lands.
It's not, Lewis says in 1921, and that's what we got to listen to here. So, at any event, that is what we're doing. And he's seeking a zoning lot, correct? The zoning lot, and he's going to measure it and show it to you. We've conferred with Mr. Williams. Mr. Gerson was part of one of the meetings, briefly, and we are doing that, this presentation, my presentation, Lewis's presentation, after we spoke with local officials. So in any event, in my remarks here, one of the questions was the history, which is kind of hard to pull out sometimes, but the history of the passage of the particular 1999 amendments said there were recent trends. We do rebut them in my letter, but Lewis will rebut them in fact after enormous research on his part. Okay, there was concerns about open space. In the A5 zone, there wasn't much open space then or now. So that concept of green space or open space, it's sometimes called green space, was really not a Tuckahoe thing. In one sense, I mean, I can understand that some arguments are against me, but I can't accept them. Now, on the other points here, I say that there was a case in 297 Dante Avenue. Mr. Rogliano made an application. It went to the Judge Nastasi of the Supreme Court on Article 78 proceedings, and it was distinguishable. I lay out why the distinguishments were here. I won't take up the whole night explaining it because I'll have this letter before you. I might just revise it a little bit if I may, in terms of putting on the right letterhead. But it wasn't at all applicable. And also, Judge Nastasi at page 6 of his decision said, well, if you were attacking this statute as Mr. Tringali, then attorney, and Mr. Rogliano, then client, were saying, if you're attacking the statute on spot area zoning, reverse zoning, then you have to bring it up before the court in the right way. Well, guess what? They didn't. But we have now, and I've had to make a record. You can understand that. I'm not attacking Tuckahoe. I'm not attacking trustees. I'm just speaking and frankly fighting for the Campana's right to develop property, which will be explained in further detail by their very competent son, architect Louis Campana. Also, after explaining the Dante situation, why it is not a guide star because it had 2 lots, or they wanted to break up 2 lots with a house in the middle. This does not have a house in the middle of the lot, not what they're proposing. Secondly, or lastly, I'll conclude here. There were concerns by the Beverleys about the impact now of this proposal. I don't think those concerns are fair, but then again, they have every right to make them, and I don't think that should be, you know, put down, if you would. However, there is no possible argument by the fact that they bought a house with part of the neighbor's lot undeveloped to say that they gave them a right to enjoy the neighbor's land. That is not.
Excuse me, do you know when they bought the house?
The Beverleys?
Yeah.
About 3 years ago.
Okay.
And the Campanas have been here since 4 years ago here.
So they bought the house after the 1999 change?
Correct, right. So, now, there was concern about blasting. There's no blasting allowed in Tuckahoe. The Campanas have little grandchildren. They're not blasting anything. Or they don't want to blast anything, excuse me. And now, community support. And I won't go to the 5 pillars or the 5 components of the village law, but the community support is here. We have 21.
Gary, is in any way community support part of our 5-prong test?
What? I'm sorry?
Well, it's part of the record. You could take in, I guess, if you look at the 5-prong test of the characteristics of the neighborhood and things like that, and if everyone is in support, yeah, and you weigh it as you, however you want to weigh it.
Thank you.
I stay with my community support idea, Mr. Jackman, sir. Okay, but it's here. One of the things that is missing in zoning law, as in my experience, and it's now developing, people want to age in place. They don't want to move to $4,700 a month rentals. I think that's the pricing over here in, across from the mobile station. What's that, Main Street there? Right, or $1.5 million penthouse where Salerno's used to be. I mean, I've been here 71 years and not lived in Tuckahoe, lived just across the border. People want to age in place, and they're entitled to do that. This is no imaginary. They were thinking about this for a very, very long time. And it is only fair that you, A, consider, and B, I respectfully suggest, grant them your resolution to allow them this zoning lot. The zoning lot is not the end of the story. It's only the beginning. You've got to go back to the planning board. But under the village law, as I read it, and Mr. Pearson knows much more than I do about that, you have to get your zoning mapped out and then go back to your planning board. Now, the planning board might just say, no, thank you. But I'm asking the zoning board on behalf of the Campanas to resolve in their favor. And please let my, I can't say assistant, colleague, I mean, he's a wonderful architect, Louis, speak.
Can you give me 1 minute, just 1 minute?
I have one also question for Mr. Kerrigan. If you could address this in your letter when you, I guess you're going to resubmit.
Yeah.
The question I would have is if you're saying it's confiscatory, this 1999 statute, why wouldn't the right to complain about that have expired in 1999 instead of 20 years later now?
Okay, well.
And I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. That would be the issue that I would have. We're 20 years after the law's been enacted.
Right. Well, the situation is there was no application 20 years ago for the Campanas, but one of the word confiscatory, please accept it as coming from the Bismarck case. That was, like throw in anything you could find.
It'd be a taking. It's some kind of
Well,
taking.
the idea that a zoning board prohibits or prohibits the use by upzoning the property was considered, still is considered confiscatory taking.
Right.
But I understand, I'm not saying it's eminent domain, not at all. But it's just part of the language of the Bismarck case, which, if studied, you see it's dead on point. I don't make idle arguments for clients who want me to just argue away. What I'm trying to do is show that it's not fair as a constitutional question. Okay, well, having
Got it,
said
but
that.
we'd have to see, we have to look at when that case was, when they brought the action, when they brought this action, this Bismarck action. I haven't seen the case yet. Was it right after the law was enacted within the statute of limitations, or was
No, it
it
is-
20 years later? So I don't know.
No, the problem of statute of limitations is a hard question as it's presented to me, but I can answer it rather easily, that it wasn't this sequence of they changed the statute and then all of a sudden the fellow applied or something like that. But we'll have to look at Bismarck carefully to give you a fair report on it.
Right.
But Mr. Kerrigan, would you also agree that that if you change the zoning and it becomes restrictive, that could be considered confiscatory? But if you grant them a broader thing, that would be giving them value, right?
Well,
So zoning goes both ways. It's always changing, so, you know, some parties can win, some parties could lose. And so just to say it's always, you know, negative or whatever, I think casts a very, you know, unfair shadow
I said-
over, you know, a village's right to change an entire, you know, zone for their entire master plan.
Sir, if I said it was confiscatory for all times, I didn't. What I'm saying is, in this odd case, it was, the companions were on the road, and Lewis will show you, to having a division, right? And all of a sudden, ba-boom. But what, 20,000 square feet, is it now? What was the property, 20,000? And it was 10,000 to, now, and it was 5,000 before. So all of A5 there is within the old measurements, right? That's all we're saying. Community support, I think that's fair. A public hearing is to hear the public, and I think Mr. Jackman agrees with me on that. Okay, sir, and I thank you all. Look at this one. Just let my hair down a little bit. This is a fair application. Thank you for your attention.
Gary, could I ask you to clarify something? In your opinion as village attorney, do you feel that the statement regarding the Raguliano case is accurate, or do you feel the village is comfortable defending it as a prior precedent?
Mr. Jackman, I just got this memo 2 minutes ago, so I have to look into it.
Okay, did you examine the Raguliano case at all, as we discussed last meeting?
I did not read the decision.
Okay.
I know the Rogliano case because it happened across the street from basically where I live.
Okay.
But,
I mean, we need to know whether, in the opinion of the village attorney, whether or not this is something you're willing to defend as a prior precedent. So.
If I may just comment. I have another piece or two of paper on that Rogliano matter.
okay.
I'll send it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Mr. Kerrigan, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
One of your last comments was the plan all along was to subdivide this, and then you said, kaboom, the rules changed. The rules changed 20 years ago.
I understand.
That
will,
it's not a kaboom to me.
I'm sorry. It's been a long day. Give me a word, Mr. Chairman. Give me a word.
I need a word from you because I'm a little bit lost. I understand the situation. But if this was within a reasonable amount of time, I would say, yeah, you have a legitimate argument. But to say that you had this plan all along, and then 20 years after the zoning changed, you think you're being discriminated against, there's a disconnect.
No. I must have confused.
Confuse me.
I'll try to unconfuse. Is that the proper word?
Sure.
Okay. Now, your question was that they should have acted quickly.
No, I didn't mean to imply that. Your words were, the plan all along was to do this, and then all of a sudden, kaboom, the rules changed. That's what I heard.
Right, but they were unconstitutional changes, sir. What I'm saying here is,
Okay.
you can
All right.
save this. You can save this matter by going to 2-4.4 and .5 as it follows, under the discussion that we had earlier. And I don't want to repeat all that. You
Yeah,
know it.
Sure.
But that can be saved. However, it was changed on them to their detriment, creating a massive different zone than it was prior to 1999.
Yeah, no, it's true.
And would you agree that there was a lot of public hearings on that, that they got community feedback before the vote on that?
That's research architect will do that. Research lawyer is going to stand on this side.
It wasn't done in dark, though, right? I mean, there was
I don't
public
know.
votes about that?
I don't know, sir. There might, I don't know about darkness, but maybe it was dim. But, any further questions, sir?
I think we'd like to hear Mr. Campana's discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Good evening, Board. I'm Louis Campana, architect and son of the applicants Maria and Matthew Campana.
Good evening.
We were last in front of this board back in December of 18, and we adjourned last month's meeting in January to have the opportunity to meet with Mr. Jurtson and Mr. Williams to go through the project in a bit more detail. We've done that, and as a result of the previous meeting and our meeting with Bill and Gary, and also Mr. Ringwald, your comment about would it be fair to see the house, we have implemented the house back into the presentation and are prepared to speak about that this evening. We also had the opportunity to meet with the Beverleys of 240 White Plains Road for a good hour and a half one Sunday afternoon and went again through the project in great detail. That gave me the opportunity to really understand their reasoning for their opposition, and I'll comment on that later this evening. We had the pleasure of also meeting with 21 of the other neighbors, and all of which were kind enough to sign a document in support of this application. That document is here, and it's also in that package that I issued you earlier this evening. Some of the members of the community are here tonight. Before I get started with the presentation, I want to go back and just recap the history of the Washingtonville subdivision and the long-term plan of the Campana subdivision. So this plan here, again, Washingtonville subdivision, approved by all authorities having jurisdiction. By looking at this plan and after reviewing it at the last meeting, we can agree on a number of things here. The first, we can agree upon that 242 fronts both White Plains Road and Taraway as of right. It also shows a proposed driveway with the curb cut on 22. We could also agree that this site is 20,518 square feet, right, doubling the 10,000 square foot minimum of local law 3. At the last meeting, we also discussed in detail the utility analysis. And we've shown, although Washingtonville didn't subdivide this lot, they certainly set it up to be subdivided by the end user. Now, in 1987, my mother and father, the applicants, purchased this piece of property with the intentions of subdividing it. And when they were able to, they employed the services of Aristotle Bernazos. Okay, this map here is the proposed subdivision map dated April 5th, 1994. Okay, this would have produced a lot that is 7,114 square feet. Okay, this would have exceeded the minimum lot area requirement at the time by over 2,000 square feet. Now, in 1998, my mother and father, oh, I'm sorry, I thought this went off. My mother and father hired architect Joseph Crocco. Okay, and he was charged with the task of designing an addition to this house that would functionally and physically reorient it so that the front entrance faced Taraway. Again, this is in 1998. This application is also part of the package that I gave you this evening. This was applied for on August 19th, 1998. And along with the application was the survey you saw showing the subdivision by Aristotle Bernazos. And here is the Joseph Crocco's architectural site plan, which also shows the subdivision line. Now, what Mr. Crocco did, he actually used the reduced lot area, okay, in his zoning analysis to confirm that when this was subdivided, that the land area was large enough to support the existing house. Okay, so what this shows is that this was a well thought out long-term plan. Okay, it was a calculated sequential approach to achieving a proper subdivision. Now, you can imagine that this addition was well underway during the early months of 1999. And you could also imagine that Mr. Campana and Mr. Crocco were in frequent communication with the building department and town officials. At no point,
Sorry, when were the original drawings for the subdivision? At the very beginning, when did they first?
1985.
85. So you're
You
saying
mean the subdivision of 242 or the Washingtonville subdivision?
the original subdivision your parents were planning was in 1984 or 1985?
1994.
1994. Thank you.
Yeah. And 4 years later was this year. Now you can imagine that they were in frequent communication with the building department, but again, at no time did the zoning official ever mention anything about this happening, or in the process of local law number 3 being proposed. However, it is known that the building department officials let Rogliano know about 267. However, Mr. Rogliano failed to apply for anything prior to the adoption of 1999. Now, you say that, was this done quickly? Well, yes, it was done quickly because, here are the meeting minutes, which I also included in your package, from that meeting in 1999. Okay, and I also researched every set of meeting minutes for 6 months prior to this, and it was never mentioned once. The only notice that was given 14 days prior to the hearing, all right, on May 31st, 1994. And it would have been found in the back of the Journal News and measured about 1 inch wide by 2 inches tall. 1999, yes. So, one of the things that I really like about what the village is doing now is that they're actually having open forums, multiple meetings regarding substantial changes. For instance, the board has held numerous meetings for a design committee for the redevelopment of Marbledale, right? From what I saw, they've had about 4 so far. And the members of the public were there speaking, okay? But this was not the case back then.
So
and if it was the case, it would have given the applicants, my parents, the opportunity to act on this.
So just to clarify, it's your stance that there was this was done in a single meeting?
It was done in one single meeting. It was proposed, commented on only by the board, no public, and approved in one single meeting. And it was adopted the next month, July 1st, 15 days later. Something of this magnitude should have certainly, I should say the village, should have found a more effective way of advertising this to the community.
What did your parents find out? When did your parents find out about that this had happened?
I don't even know if it was televised.
No, I mean, like, did they come back in to discuss with their architect and they go, hey, sorry, by the way,
The
we
architect had
changed.
no idea. The architect who drew this certainly would have said something if he knew.
Right, but I'm saying essentially, was this realized until, at what point did you go, oh, crud, they changed this,
Well, I think they realized maybe a few months after, but apparently they waited for their son to become an architect.
Right. do you have any record of any sort of communication with them to the zoning board, or not the zoning board, the building inspector, something saying, how did this change so quickly we weren't notified? Do you have any record of that? I'm kind of on your behalf is what I'm talking here. Is there any record of that?
I don't believe so. I just
Okay.
think, it was ripped out from beneath them, so I didn't think they had the means nor the knowledge to combat this at the time.
Okay, so there was never any letter, any communication regarding, how do you take this away from us? We were in the midst of, in 1994 getting this subdivision done. What happened? Was there anything? No? Okay.
I mean, I don't know how that's going to even help or work against this application. So, now we can all agree again that this lot is larger than 20,000 square feet. It is in fact the largest lot throughout the southern district of the A5 zone, which has about 117 developed lots within it. Now, considering that this is the only lot that's large enough that can be subdivided as of right, what I think Robert was trying to say is that it is the only property that this local law number 3 can be applied to. That is what is discriminatory about it.
And just to clarify for people at home who may not understand what you're talking about in specifically the A5 zone, Tuckahoe, the village of Tuckahoe is made up of how many zones?
Village of Tuckahoe?
Yeah.
Residential?
Yes.
Residential B, A5, and A10.
Yeah.
Right. Was there?
So we've got quite a few zones. This is one of the multiple zones within Tuckahoe, but within that zone, you're the only property that this affects.
Within this
within that
district of the zone, yes.
So you're saying this is the only property over 10,000
This
one,
one other-
1 foot square feet?
Over 20,000.
No, but 10,000. Everyone's affected. That is over
Any
10,000.
lot that is larger than 20,000 square feet are the only lots that are affected by this. And the reason why, as it says in the meeting minutes here of that meeting in 1999, it says, "It is the intention of the village board that the present lot requirements shall continue to apply to all lots that exist as of July 1st, 1999. And what that means, everything else is grandfathered in. Right?
No, I mean anything that
Yes.
was 10,000 square feet on July 1st, 1999 could have been subdivided into 2 lots,
We're not
to
complaining about that.
5,000, and
we're
then
not complaining.
afterwards none of them could, right?
We're not concerned about that.
So every single, property that was 10,000 square feet got affected, just to be clear.
Every property that was over 10,000 got affected.
Right, okay.
However, since this is over 20,000 square feet, it is the only property that the setback regulation can be applied to. Does that make sense? Because the setback regulations don't apply to any other lot.
Yeah, but the square footage applies to every
within your
single lot.
zone, not within the village of Tuckahoe, correct? Within the village of Tuckahoe, there's more than one property this affects, correct?
One other.
Is that correct, Gary?
It can't be.
It's
It can't be
under-
correct. It would apply to every single lot that was
I have the
10,000
count
square
and maps
feet.
here.
So every single one, there's not a single lot that's 10,000 square feet.
You're missing the point here. In order to subdivide, you need 20,000 square feet.
But before the zoning change, you only needed 5,000, right? Because the lot size was
Right, but
5,000.
that's not what we're here about.
Yeah, but those were all affected. Those got wiped out on July 1st, 1999, right?
But it does not, that it does not apply to what we're doing here at all. What I'm saying and what I'm showing you, if you would listen, is that we have a 20,000 square foot lot that can be subdivided as of right, which means that this lot has to comply with zoning, local law number 3, as far as setbacks. Right. Now, is that clear?
Gary, do
Yeah,
we have our own
lots
version of
lots
his
with setback
packet?
issues.
I gave it to you.
I don't have it. I think
Bill,
they
could I have that,
they
please?
just submitted it tonight, so I don't even have it.
Well, I would like to reference one thing he's pointing out here. I'd like to read a small section of it. One of the issues we raised in the last month's meeting, and your point about the speed at which this was approved, I think, is actually a very good point, and I think it's well taken. But I do want to clarify that I think one of the things I specifically raised in the last meeting was the intent of the board when they approved this change in the zoning. And we can talk about the semantics of the second section, which you've highlighted here. However, I do want to point out the first sentence in this local law. Quote, "There have been some concerns by the village board regarding a recent trend to demolish older houses on larger properties and subdivide the properties to construct numerous new homes with reduced yard size and or to build such new houses in the side yards between existing houses, which seems to speak very clearly to the intent of the zoning
Okay,
board."
that's right. So after I read it, I actually did the research, and if you actually look into what that recent trend was, then you'd come to realize that now what is the purpose of this, right? Because in the A5 zone,
Well, this was
the
passed for the
closest-
village of Tuckahoe, not just the
I
A5 zone,
understand that,
correct?
but I'm going to get to the trend. So within the decade of the 1990s, there were 3 subdivisions. 2 were applied for and were for 2 properties in the residential B zone, one on Jackson Avenue and the other one on Westview. Okay, both were heavily opposed and both were approved. In 1992, which is the only other subdivision within that entire decade, that was approved and opposed as well. That was the only one located in the A5 zone. So do 2 subdivisions in 1999 constitute a trend? And does that?
And these 2 subdivisions are within your zone?
No, the residential B zone.
Okay.
The only one that occurred during the 1990s
Was the 92 one?
was in 92.
Okay, thank you.
So that's what sort of creates the issue about this whole recent trend, right?
So you're in, what you're saying is essentially there was no trend.
Was no trend.
You disagree with the language that there has been some concerns
Completely.
regarding a recent trend.
Completely.
Thank you.
I mean, what constitutes a trend and what constitutes recent, right? Recent is something comparatively close to the present, right? A trend, I think 2 people doing the same thing is more of a coincidence than a trend.
It could have been a trend in Scarsdale or Bronxville or Yonkers
Well, that's
or
not
Mount
the
Vernon.
village.
Yeah, but they could have been looking at housing trends across the area. I mean, so
I mean, now you're just coming up with some, well, okay, look at Eastchester. Have they upzoned and amended their zoning regs? Absolutely not. Look at Bronxville. Absolutely not. I have more documentation that I will get to, and I'll show you that. Okay. So I don't think you want me to get into the green space. Because if you do, I just need a Sharpie.
What do you mean by green? I'm sorry, could you clarify that?
Well, that's the second sentence you read. Open space.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When you said green space, I wasn't.
Okay. So the intent of this application is to subdivide, number 1, right? Number 2, we intend on preserving the existing dwelling, my parents' existing house, for 2 reasons. 1, because of the value and character it contributes to the neighborhood, and 2, because it would be financially impracticable to demolish a house of this stature within the village. Now, we can show you that we could actually subdivide this lot into 2 10,000 square foot lots while maintaining the house. But as you can see here, I don't know if you can, you may have to zoom in, Donnie. In order to do this, we would have to create a very awkward condition for the mere purpose of creating a 10,000 square foot lot. All right? But now, if, hypothetically speaking, if we were to tear down the house, which we are not doing, this is what will happen. Now we have a 20,000 square foot lot subdivided into 2 10,000 square foot lots. Lot 6A would be 10,515. Lot 6B would be 10,004. Now, pursuant to 4-23 under the 1999 ordinance, Lot 6B could be developed. However, look at what happens with Lot 6A. Now, the unreasonable nature of these zoning regulations, which again only apply to 1 lot within a district of 117, all right, that actually creates the problem, and it limits us, obviously, and it takes away the ability to use our land.
I've got a question for you about the change in the zoning in 1999.
Sure.
So it changed the square footage, the minimum lot size from 5,000 to 10,000.
Yep.
Did it also change the setback, side yard, front yard, rear yard? And what were those changes?
Okay,
Sorry,
so-
I don't know those.
For some who don't know, the pre-1999 amendment went from 5,000 to 10,000. Front yard and rear yard setbacks went from 25 to 35, and side yard setbacks went from 9 to 20. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. All right. So,
Excuse me, if I understood you correctly, you could take this and redraw the lines of the lot. Would you even have to come to the zoning board at all?
Yes, I would still need two yard setbacks.
For yard setbacks
And we
only?
would still need, well, yeah, no, not this one.
No, for the
The other one,
for
the
the
10,000?
existing home.
All right, so we would still need,
Well, the front yard, what would now be your front yard, would need a big variance because you're required to have a certain amount of
this one here.
frontage on the circle there, correct?
This here?
Yeah.
This is legally, pre-existing legally non-conforming. Yeah.
But that's your rear yard currently. I think the
Well,
problem
no,
is
no,
that
see,
it
it's
flips.
not. It's not the rear yard. That's where there was some confusion last time. So this is considered a through lot. So a through lot fronts two streets that are opposite one another and do not connect. Right? And so by definition, a rear yard is generally, the line generally opposite the street line. So by definition, there is no rear yard, and we are not reorienting the site.
I will leave that to smarter minds than myself in the building department to figure out, but thank you.
All right, so now with this being said, what's creating the burden here is actually the unreasonable nature of these setbacks. Okay, setbacks, again, that only apply to this one lot. Now, considering that Bronxville is 200 yards south and Eastchester is 100 yards north, we cannot discount those when we talk about immediate context. And at the last meeting, I did mention that not only do these setback regulations not coincide with lots in the A5 zone, but they're also more restrictive than those of neighboring Eastchester and Bronxville, relative to lots of similar lot sizes.
What are those?
Well, we'll get to that, but you know, I also wanted to go a step further, and you know, these the zoning regulations, and you might call me crazy, but they're actually more restrictive than every municipality throughout southern Westchester. And these site plans indicate each municipality for lots of 10,000 square feet. There's 19. And what I've done for simplicity, I created this bar graph here. And what it is percentage of buildable lot area relative to lot size and setbacks. So I took the minimum requirements for 10,000 square foot zones, and I created a lot with minimum frontage, depth, area, and setbacks. And after projecting the setbacks, you take the area, which is produced, and you divide that by the lot area. And that gives you the percentage of buildable area. Now, pre-1999, Tuckahoe was 33.2%. The average throughout all of southern Westchester is 34.3%. Now, Tuckahoe's regulations, again, which only apply to this one lot out of 117 in the southern district, is at 22%, 36% less than the county average. So, after exhausting all...
I'm sorry, I thought you said the county average was about 34, 36.
34.3.
And it's 22.
Right.
So 22
Did you
minus...
see where
so we're-
Tuckahoe was on
So we're
the
even
graph?
much more stringent than
Yeah,
any
no, no,
other.
I understand, but then you said it was a...
70% has to be green space.
Yeah, okay. And maybe I misunderstood.
So after exhausting all other options regarding the subdivision, the most reasonable approach to this would be an 8,088 square foot lot. Okay, 8,088 square feet is consistent with the majority of lots throughout the Southern District, and in fact, it is larger than 85% of the 524 developed lots throughout the A5 zone. Now, in order for this to occur, there's a number of variances that are required. On Lot 6A will be 12,430 square feet. Okay, but there would be 4 variances required, 3 of which are legally non-conforming conditions. and that is the side yard here, the setback here, and the street line. The one pertinent variance would be a 20-foot setback to the rear property line, which would be under common ownership. And that 20-foot setback goes to an open covered porch, which is another 11 feet deep. Now, on lot 6B,
Sorry, if I could, I'm sorry, you're midstream here. I just want to interrupt real quick, because now you're going down the specifics of how you'd kind of deal with the side yard, front yard, and et cetera. Can we just step back 1 second to kind of frame your initial discussion as questioning how exactly this regulation came into place and comparing the lot area size to surrounding community, this sort of thing. If I could just summarize here real quick, and you can tell me whether or not you feel this is fair. Your argument essentially, very boiled down, of course, is that your parents had a pre-existing application prior to 1999. That 1990 to 1999 rule was passed unfairly with very little notice to your parents. And as it stands today, your belief is that the lot size, the regulations create a lot size that is unfair in comparison to surrounding communities. Would that be accurate?
yes.
Thank you. All right, so now just before we got into the technicality
Is
of
that a
it.
good thing or a bad thing?
No, I'm just confirming that I understand the situation. Thank you.
Okay, so lot 6B, sorry. I'm trying to make some light,
I understand.
Lot 6B, as we discussed, 8,088 square feet. There are also 4 other variances that would be required for this lot. And within the zoning regulations, there's a section 2-44, which is actually a section geared towards the zoning board. And it stipulates principles that the board must be guided by when granting area variances. So we've actually taken those principles and applied them to lot 6B. And pursuant to section 244, in regards to the front yard, that shall be measured by the average depth of the front yards, houses on either side. So 240 White Plains Road is 25 feet from the street, and 244 White Plains Road is 35 feet. So the average is 30. We're proposing a front lot line, a front setback of 30 feet to the front property line, which is the average. And there would be actually another 5 feet to the edge of pavement for 22. And the side yards, on the southern side yard where we're seeking a 12'2" setback, and on the northern side 11'4". And you ask, well, why are they different? Well, what I've done was I've taken into consideration the setbacks of the homes on either side as well on the side yard, with the intention of creating as much balance as possible. So 240 White Plains Road is 9 feet from the setback, and 244 is 11 feet. So that would create a space between the 2 homes here of 21'2", and then here would be 22'4". So it's a foot off, but once you see the elevations, you can gather the balance that it created.
So for clarity's sake, the proposed home you're talking about is a one-level home?
We'll get there. I'll show you the elevations next.
Well, I mean, you can make it a two-level home and you
Well, the
wouldn't-
hardship there is the existing conditions of the site, and that's obviously the rock that we're contested
Okay.
with. So the rear yard, the stipulation 244, the rear yard shall equate to 20% of the average depth of the lot, and in no instance shall exceed 20. So the average depth of the lot is 22.7 feet, and we are proposing a 20'4" setback, again, to a rear yard under common ownership. Now this is just it shown within its context, and you can see the footprint size doesn't really differ too much with the other homes. It's actually smaller, and you see how it's a bit more rectilinear in shape, and that's just a product of the lot shape. And again, street addresses. This would become 6 Taraway, and this would be 242 White Plains Road. So here is the streetscape. Now, there's a number of things I did here, but before I get into that, I just want to explain a little bit about the architectural detailing. And the plan here is to mirror the architectural detailing of the existing house on the site. I also want this house to speak in quality to many of the homes up and down White Plains Road, for lack of better terms, in the Bronxville corridor. So that's the type of quality we're looking at here. But in order to make this fit in with the context, I took aspects of the houses on either side and incorporated that into the design here. Now you can see the garage is generally to the south, so I've done that same thing. The front door is centrally located. The ridge height, so I took the ridge height and I made that sort of our dictating point. So we don't want to exceed that ridge height because we want to remain consistent with that streetscape. But also what's important to see here is that our roof line starts much lower, right? But our pitch is much higher. So there's not much wall, so this house is not imposing. And the only reason why it is 1.5 stories is because that's basically a product of the architecture and the roof pitch, creating that space on the second floor, which is less, excuse me, which is less than 50% of the floor below. That's basically why it's considered a 1/2 story. This is just a blow up here, but it just gives you just a little bit more detail. What I also thought was important was to make the first floors consistent with one another. And just for further discussion, I guess, the garage slab would be 6 inches above the roadway, just to allow for positive pitch. First floor would be 5 feet above that elevation. And then there would be a level just above the garage, but considered first floor proper, a few steps up. Now, there were a number of comments at the last meeting regarding the impact this will have on the roadway. Mr. Jackman, I know you're very concerned about that. Yeah. So I felt compelled to go a bit further and put together this study. And what we have here is a bird's eye view, a satellite aerial photograph showing White Plains Road going from the north to the south. Here's the intersection with Winter Hill. This is, as you can see, this is actually quite the most open residential space or area throughout the A5 zone. This is a view looking over White Plains Road from the east at that same area, and again, White Plains Road going from north to south. Now, when you enter into this segment of roadway between Crawford Drive and Winter Hill, there's a number of precautionary traffic signs leading up to this area. There's a road narrowing sign, goes from 2 lanes to 1, followed by a speed limit sign, 30 miles an hour, followed by a blinking 25 mile an hour school zone sign, and then the crosswalk, which is again right here. Now the significance and what's important about this crosswalk is that it actually redirects pedestrian traffic from the east side of 22 to the western side. And what's great about that is that the existing curb cuts and the new curb cuts, or maybe one new curb cut, would not burden pedestrian traffic. Now, I also, there was comments about people breaking traffic laws and pulling U-turns, and
I would note that, as I agree with your comment at the time, though, that is not your issue. That is their issue.
But just because I wanted to consult with the village police department. And what I was able to do is pull 10 years of accident reports to determine whether or not this would be an impact. And I find that over 10 years, there was 18 traffic accidents here. I believe it was 14 or 15 of which were caused by people actually stopping at the traffic light and bumping into one another. The others were actual accidents, but none were caused by the residents with curb cuts on this section of roadway. That's why I felt that this was an important piece of detail that I wanted you guys to have.
And that's also in your packet?
That is.
Thank you.
And I also took all of this documentation and I presented it to Frank DeMarco. And also included in your package, I believe I included it, is a letter in support from Mr. DeMarco.
It's the second page, yeah.
Second page. And he does not see any negative impact that this would have on the roadway either.
Is it a two-car garage?
It's a two-car garage, so we conform. I'm sorry, I should have said before. Lot 6B, the dwelling on Lot 6B, we conform with FAR, coverage, and building height. Building height is 35, we're 30. Same with the two houses on either side. Now that we're just on this page, because of the character that we plan to introduce to this house, we feel that it would certainly not only increase the character of the neighborhood, considering the house directly to the south, but it would also, in doing so, help increase property value, at least protect and preserve the property values of our neighbors. So if there's any questions that you may have, I'd be happy to answer.
I mean, I will say personally, it's a lot of information, so I think we have to go through your packet, and, you know, it's the doctoral thesis, so I think we need to examine it further, but I think you make some very good points, and I at least take them to heart.
Yeah, we just received that packet tonight, and
So
I agree.
The packet that you have, I reviewed all of it
Right,
this evening.
okay.
So talk to me about why you chose on the side yards to make it 11 and 12 feet instead of conforming to 20 feet. You know, as more as an architect, and you know, why didn't you make the house footprint smaller?
Well, number
what
one-
are some of your considerations?
I would note that I think
go-
Member Scalzo, and I don't know if, did you give this to us in our information? He did a whole presentation on how the layout, if he actually conformed to those, how small the building
I'll
is.
show that, but I think what you're asking for is the hardship as to why we cannot do that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, you know, so I guess I'm taking you down. Let's assume we say 8,800 square feet
Yeah.
is okay, and let's assume we say okay, but then we want you to build it as conforming as possible. You know, the rear yard may not be possible. You know,
Well, the-
front yard you're at 30. Why couldn't you go to 35? Side yard you're at 12 and 11. Why
you
couldn't you
actually
go to
wanna see this.
20? You know, so talk to me as the architect. You know,
Sure.
some of your thoughts.
So, just for clarity's sake, it's not 8,800, it's 8,080.
8,080.
Right.
8,088. Sorry. Okay. But
So this is Lot 6B under the 1960 ordinance, and here's Lot 6B under the 1990 ordinance. Here, 100% of the A5 zone and the Southern District comply with these regulations here, and 0 comply with this one. So 242 is the only one that has to comply with this one. However,
well, I mean, I just want to interrupt you there. Every new building has to
no.
apply with that.
No. Take 267 Dante Avenue, for instance.
Okay.
Does anyone have a Sharpie, please? Does anyone have a pen?
But if you have a blank, lot, you have to.
If you have
conform
a
with-
blank, if you have a blank lot that was existing prior to July 1st, 1999, you can use the 1960 setbacks.
Because you're not subdividing it or anything, you're just using it as of right.
So let's use 267 Dante Avenue as an example here. So, Mr. Rogliano, I'm sorry, I don't want to use names, but had a lot. Okay? The lot was 14,700 square feet with a tiny house in the middle. If you look at Google Earth, that's approximately the size it would be compared to the lot. They came to the board after it changed with the argument that they were entitled to this, with a proposed lot showing 2 modestly sized houses conforming with the makeup of the neighborhood. right? So they were denied this. Obviously, we know that. But what ended up happening, because of the way the zoning regulations are written, they went back and built a house 9 feet from the setback, 9 feet from the side yard, 25 foot off the road, and 9 feet from the other side yard. Now, Mr. Jackman, your comment was that this activity has a detrimental impact on the quality and character of the neighborhoods as it reduces open space.
You're saying in reference to the 1999
Yes,
zoning change, yes.
passing of this law.
But when they built
So-
that, I'm sorry, when they built that house, the setback on the sides were 9 feet, right?
Sorry?
When they built the house,
This, yeah, but that's
they
not
didn't get a
arguing.
variance for that.
I'm just showing you right
Okay.
now how inconsistent the regulations are
All right.
and how false and unreasonable this is, the minutes.
Shouldn't that have fallen under new? He can't build that as of right.
It's an existing house.
But if
I'm
he
sorry,
tore,
it's an
if he,
existing lot.
but if he tore it down, if he tore down an existing property and built a new property, Bill, is that, doesn't he have to comply with the new?
It's an existing lot prior to 1999, and you can conform to the older setbacks.
Well, that seems ridiculous.
That's what makes this discriminatory against one property. So, but the thing that you need to realize here is that the purpose, or one of the underlying reasons, was to create open space or protect open space. But the variance that they actually were seeking would have doubled the open space. And look what the ordinance allows you to do, decrease it.
But that's assuming that he would have stuck with 2 small houses. He could have put 2 large houses there, no?
No,
Why not?
because you can't, you're subdividing the lot.
Yeah.
So you have you have 2 sets of setbacks as
So the old setbacks wouldn't apply. He'd have to
No,
go with
because
the
you're,
new
no,
setbacks.
because you're creating a new lot. That's exactly why.
And this
and
was,
what we're up
this
against.
was after the side setbacks were changed?
Right. But this lot was 14,700. It was already substandard. So they may have had an argument if they had a lot that was 20,000 square feet. Right?
Yep.
So I thought Mr. Levy was going to be here, but this would have been something good for him to see. Because I believe Frank Fish was involved with the planning of this event, right?
Don't know.
So if you have any further questions.
I think it's fairly exhaustive. We will, I think it's all very good information.
So yeah, it is very good information. But back to your earlier point that if you, forgive my, I don't know the right word, if you redrew the lines for the front lot, Jerry rigged it so that it was 10,000 square feet, and you built a house on the new lot, hypothetically, you wouldn't need any variances if you stayed within the right setbacks, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, no, that's not right, because we're still creating a new lot and therefore have to conform to new setbacks. So,
Yes, so you'd have to conform to the new setbacks.
right.
So you could build that
But you
tiny
could-
little
This is
house.
what we would be
Yeah.
left with, because that little dagger that goes up into 6A, that's only for the purpose of gaining, just under 2,000 square feet to make this a 10,000 square foot lot. This line, this rear lot line doesn't move. So this is what you end up with if you use the conforming.
How big is the house you're proposing right now?
It's about 2,200 square feet. So it's a modest sized house. You're allowed 40% building coverage. We're at 27%. You're allowed 50% in FAR, and I believe we're well under 40. So, and again, I strive to make this fit into the context as best as possible. And I think by looking at the elevations, you could agree that it would fit it. I know there's other opinions, but that's just my professional opinion. It's something? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yep,
Any questions? I'd be happy to
thank you.
answer.
Okay, thank you. Obviously, we have to review the information that was submitted this evening. We appreciate your very thorough presentation. It's most helpful.
Gary, if I could ask a quick question. In the applicant's discussion of this, barring any information we've received, we have to take what he says as, until I hear other information from the village. So let's assume this 1999 notice was passed fairly quickly with very little review and without notification to people who had pending applications. Let's just, for the sake of argument. In what manner would someone go around challenging to the current village board to challenge us and say this was a, this only affects 2 properties, 3 properties? And again, one thing I did ask for the number of properties this affected in the village.
I have that information for you if you need it.
Well, that's fine. I just want to
That's
clarify
the
with
proper
Gary.
procedure was when they passed the law, then if you consider it a taking, then you sue the board, you sue the village.
So-
You do an Article 78 proceeding at that
So
time.
what's
That's why I
his
asked
available?
Mr.
Let's say if he
Kerrigan.
just goes to the village board and says, look, this is ridiculous. I'd like this to be allowed.
Propose an amendment.
Right.
But that's not, listen, that's not what we're here for.
No, I'm just for my own
Again, I
education.
think, again,
An unconstitutional
Well,
act.
so, sir, 1 second. I'd like to discuss it with the lawyer, and then I'll happy to take your opinion.
and again, we usually get any submissions a week or so before the board meeting. There's usually a cutoff date. I haven't seen this. I haven't even seen it. You've seen it. So I don't know how much I can comment on it. I usually like to see the stuff, review it, and then be able to give you an informed decision based on what I.
No, this is more, I'm just wondering as far as what avenues are available to applicants if they say, look, this was
Again, the proper procedure would have been, hey, if there was a taking, you would bring an Article 78 proceeding against the village back then. And again, that's what I asked Mr. Kerrigan. Why, when did that expire? When did that right to bring that action expire? And I don't know if it's addressed in here. I don't know if Mr. Kerrigan can address that now.
So we can address after we look through
He
the
might
packet.
say, hey, wait a second, 1999, it's 20 years later. Should have done it in later 1999 or beginning of 2000. I just don't know.
Okay, all right, thank you.
The village council has a point, but it's not correct in assuming or suggesting that an unconstitutional statute has a statute of limitations to it. But I would like to brief with him because he hasn't seen the case. He hasn't seen the.
That's fine. I think I
Well,
was
I
speaking
wasn't
more
making
basic
a
terms
point.
than this is coming
Mine
across.
was a
Just
question.
what could a ordinary citizen do about something that they felt was unfair? It's just,
Well, the Judge Nastasi in the Rogliano's decision said there was remedies. However, Rogliano's lawyer didn't bring him up.
Okay.
And I had to make him here. That's why I had to just lay him out, right?
so we'll look through the
So let me-
packet and Gary will
And
discuss
again,
further.
I wasn't making a point. I was asking really more of a question.
Yeah.
It's an issue. I was bringing up an issue that I think we need to figure out. And again, I haven't seen it. This is the first time I've seen this argument. That was my question with it. So I think Mr. Kerrigan and myself will speak and work it out.
The word confiscatory is coming from an older era of law, and it is applied in this word. It's not an eminent domain taking in that sense. But this is counsel to counsel, if I may, Mr. Counsel.
So, Mr. Kerrigan, did you give enough packets for each one of the board members, or just
No,
the
I
one
just stole
packet?
this from, he gave it to Bill. I just grabbed it early so I could see something. It was,
I'm sorry, that wasn't my, right.
The package there?
Yeah.
That's just all the information that I showed this evening.
he just gave this to Bill. I had just grabbed it from Bill so I could take a look at something. So we'll all get this
We're gonna
month.
receive packets.
So we can review it before, yes, we can review it before the next meeting.
Well, I could say nothing has changed other than just the house. Everything else is the same. So I don't think you need that entire package.
No,
of
not the entire
200
packet,
pages.
but
You
some
probably
of it,
see
some of it
the
is
house.
useful, I think.
So just to be clear, when I boil this down, the thing that I need to make a decision on is when this law was passed, was it specifically passed to prevent exactly what you're doing? And was that the correct interpretation, as written, as understood then, is they do not want people to do this? Or is it more generically that what you're proposing is an unintended consequence of
That's
a
exactly what it
poorly written, poorly conceived of law, which happens all the time, and that's what comes before us, unintended consequences, and we do grant variances all the time, but those are the balances. Is what are they trying to prevent and enforce and become more uniform, and what is sort of unintended, and so that's the complication here. Just
Right, so,
flat out.
so this zoning ordinance was not created because of us. It unintentionally affects us, right? It unintentionally is prejudiced towards this lot. We're not saying it was made because of us.
Good clarification.
So that, but that is what's creating the undue hardship here.
Sure.
I know you covered this like 12 times.
We
but
did.
What's the space between the house on the left? If I'm facing your property from the new front,
From
the new building from White Plains Road.
Yes.
What's just real quick? What's the gap between the wall of your house and the wall of the house on the left? And same thing on the right.
Hold on, let me go to the.
You said 21 feet. I know.
You're talking. Which lot are you talking about? 6A or 6B?
The new lot with the new house.
6B.
Yes. So compared to how close are you from your neighbor's
So
property? It's what, 21 feet? I think.
we from structure to structure. it'll
Structure to
be
structure.
21'4" on the south side.
Yep.
And on the north side, it was a little more.
22'4" on the north side.
Structure to structure, not the property line.
Right. I'm asking structure.
To
to
structure,
structure.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. very
Typically, it
much.
would be 9 foot, 18 feet.
I know we
Just so
have
you-
those. I just had you there. So thank you. All right. I think.
But Mr. Scalzo, sorry. This diagram that I just want to point this out. Just so you know, as of right, if this house was demolished at one day, if it is demolished, we could actually construct a house 5% of the lot, which is 10,000 square feet, 9 feet from side yard setbacks and 25 feet from the road. So that's, that's a problem. I mean, it's a problem, quite honestly. And I think I've shown that with this.
Just to save me a little research time, you mentioned earlier the square footage.
I can do that for you. If you want.
Yeah, no, you're great. You're great. In Eastchester and Bronxville, it's 10,000 in Tuckahoe. What are the equivalents for Eastchester and Bronxville?
Setbacks?
No, sorry, lot size.
Well, okay, so for instance, Eastchester has a myriad of different zones. Tuckahoe has 3, right? So Tuckahoe has the residential B and the A5 and the A10.
Right.
Residential B and A5 are 10,000,
Right.
which are upzone 100%. The A10 zone was 2,000 and was upzoned 20% to 12,000 square feet. So
Okay.
there was an inconsistent upzoning throughout the entire village. Eastchester has, I mean, I have.
Well, give me
it's
one
right
that would be, compared to your
there. I
zone.
believe it's the A10 zone.
A10 zone.
Yeah. But they have a 7,500 square foot zone. They have a 5,000 square foot zone. They have, I believe, a 12,000 square foot zone.
Okay, thank you.
And that's in here that we'll get to.
That is in there. I have all
I don't have that.
the bulk and
I know, I'm
area
just telling you, we'll get
requirements for the 19 municipalities.
Thank you.
All right, so
Thank you.
we,
Good job. Thank
We're
you.
good.
Yeah, you can have a seat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
we're keeping the discussion open to
Yeah.
next week.
We have to with all the
We-
new
We need
information.
to review. All right, thank you very much. The public hearing is still open on this, correct? All right. Is there anyone from the public who would like to step forward and comment regarding 242 White Plains Road? Please do so.
I need coffee.
Hey, doing members of the board. My name is Michael Beverly. I live at 240 White Plains Road, the neighboring house adjacent to the new lot requested.
Welcome.
I
Thank you.
also submitted a lawyer. I'm going to submit an entry note. I'd like to just hand off to you guys first, if you don't mind.
Being very formal, aren't we?
Process, right?
Work her hand and her legs, CrossFit.
Thank you, man.
So similar to the lawyer, I've also made some scribbles on the note. So that will be adjusted, and I will resubmit. First off, I want to thank you guys for listening to the public, because I feel it is an important step in this process. We, as members of the Tuckahoe community and neighbors of 242 White Plains Road, strongly oppose the variances requested to subdivide the property and construct a new house on the proposed Lot 6B. We'd like to reference our public comment from December 12th Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Zoning codes are established for a purpose, and the 1999 amendments to the code were proposed, approved, and adopted in the interest of overall good of the Tuckahoe community. These laws were put in place to uphold the conservation of existing and potential property value, the overall character of the village, and to ensure the most appropriate use of land by carefully regulating quality and density. We appreciate the board and Mr. Jackman raising the point to investigate why the 1999 zoning laws were put in place. Now, I'm not going to read all of this because there's been a lot of discussion about it.
I was a little scared there for a minute.
He's not going to read it again, no. However, I do want to call out that the first part of that page and the reason why the laws were put in place was read, as well as the final part. However, I feel the middle was overlooked in this ordinance that reads, "This activity has a detrimental impact on the quality and character of the neighborhood as it reduces open space and creates or increases parking and traffic problems. The village board has therefore determined that it's important to limit density in residential areas." I think that's where I'd like to focus on, because all of these discussions about pre-1999 and 1999 forward, if we're going to go pre-1999, we're going to allow a house to be built on top of my house, as was what was requested in the side yard variances, the front and rear yard, as well as the full lot size. It was clearly stated in the Board of Trustees meeting 20 years ago that the reason behind the amendment of the 1960 zoning laws was to limit the density in the residential areas and prevent the detrimental impact in quality and character of the neighborhoods. If these variances for a lot split and the construction of a new house are granted, we risk falling short on these reasons the amendments were created in the first place. Additionally, in the last Zoning Board of Appeals meeting in December, the chairman stated that 5 criteria of the 5-prong test need to clearly be met in order to grant the easements requested. After reviewing the criteria in detail, we would like to reference 3 prongs that we feel are not met. Prong number 1, there will or will not be an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood and detriment to nearby properties. I hope me standing in front of you today indicates that there will be, I'm sorry, I lost my place, is an indication that if a home is built on the newly formed Lot 6B, there will be a detrimental impact to me and my family located in the property directly next to this lot. I purchased my home with the understanding that Lot 6A was one lot. If multiple variances requested today are granted and a home is built, we will be approving a non-conforming lot according to the new laws set in 1999, creating more density to an already overcrowded neighborhood, reducing my property value, and providing an additional access point for cars to turn around on White Plains Road, increasing traffic on an already heavy trafficked road. Now, I know there was some discussion about them getting traffic approval and things like that, but I can say I personally bought a Ring doorbell, and I am rung by it 5 times a day of people turning around in my driveway. I have other neighbors who also experience this as well, and there's a school across the street. So this is a highly populated area, and this will provide another area for people to turn around in. Prong number 2, the requested variance is not substantial. Not only are the variances substantial, a 20% reduction in the mandatory lot size as an example, but there are numerous variances requested as well, including but not limited to the overall lot area and width, front yard, side yard, rear yard setbacks. The variances referenced are specific to the proposed Lot 6B. These do not include the additional variances needed to the existing 242 White Plains Road Lot 6A, which may be overlooked because the house already exists, however should be considered as another support point to adding density to the village and creating an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood. Prong number 3, the proposed variance will not only have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental condition in the neighborhood. Parcel 6B is primarily bedrock. This rock is clearly evident when viewing the lot in person. This bedrock literally stretches into my basement, so much so that the foundation is sloped around the rock. Even if blasting is no longer an option in the Tuckahoe Village, drilling or other methods used can certainly be detrimental to the physical and physically affect my house. We would like to refer to Bill Williams' comment in December meeting that there are existing lots in the village of Tuckahoe that are similar size to 242 White Plains Road. I know there's been some discussion whether it's 2 or 3 or more in the village overall, but I think it was also discussed, and excuse me, board member, but there is one house, a house down from 242 White Plains Road on the corner of Crawford and White Plains Road that is 19,000 square feet and has 1 home on it. If these variances are granted and we allow a house to be constructed, we risk setting village precedent for larger lots to attempt to subdivide their property and build a second new house, a direct conflict to the reasons the 1999 zoning laws were adopted in the first place, and adversely affecting the community going forward. In conclusion, we want your decision today to be based on the current zoning laws, the ones that have existed since July 1st, 1999, 20 years ago. Please do not base today's decision on intention prior to the 1999 ordinance, the debatable 1987 intentions of Washingtonville subdivision to create a Lot 6B that never came to fruition, or the possible 1994 intentions of 242 White Plains Road to split the lot. These points are moot. The decision should be based on fact, current laws, and regulations that are in place to protect the quality and integrity of the village. We understand signatures have been collected by members of the community that do not take issue with the house being built in this space. While we appreciate the effort that went into collecting these signatures, the signatures are not a representation of the properties that will be most affected, in my opinion, adversely affected by the lot split, subsequent construction of a new house, like myself, my family, and other close properties to the White Plains Road. There are 2 houses adjacent to 242 White Plains Road that will bear the brunt of this decision. As one of those properties, we ask that you not grant the variances. This appeals process has been lengthy, has been delayed, altered, modified, and represented a number of different times over the past 8 months. Please remember your initial ruling back in June for the lot split and construction of the new home. The request was denied. The number of variances needed to split the lot, compounded by the number of substantial variances needed to build a house, remain the same as they did 8 months ago. The negative effect on the density of the neighborhood, traffic in the community, and my property value remains the same. Variance to the zoning laws should not be easily granted. They should be small and be an exception, not the rule. Please stay true to the 1999 zoning amendments established 20 years ago to prevent the detrimental impact to the quality and character of the neighborhoods and limit the density to our beautiful village. Thank you. Myself and Eileen, my wife.
I did want to clarify one thing. The applicant was never had a formal request denied. During a work session, they brought up their initial plans, and they decided to change their plans, which they're more than welcome to do. I just want to clarify that for purposes of the record. They were never denied for anything. It was just being told that we didn't like what they'd initially proposed.
Fair enough.
Thank you. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Beverly. Anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Please step forward. Kindly state your name for the record.
Yes, my name's Paul DeFucci. I live at 30 Winslow Circle, which is directly one property removed adjacent to Mike and his wife's backyard.
With the stone fence on the White Plains Road there?
No, I live on Winslow Circle, so there's a
Okay.
there's like a wooden barrier.
Okay.
I appreciate all that you did and all the work that you've done. I mean, it's very thorough, I gotta admit. And if I need something, I'm going to you, so. No. But there's one thing I'm concerned of, and the people on Winslow Circle are very aware of this, and it's the water and it's the runoff. With all these changes that are going to be happening on this lot, I'm very concerned on what's going to happen to the potential damage that comes to me. Before Mike moved in, I had a lot of water issues. Tried a bunch of different things to try to get them remedied until he took care of his backyard, and I realized what it was actually doing was his yard wasn't as kept up as nice until he moved in and the water went away. Because there's a distinct runoff that affects everybody in Winslow Circle because it goes that way. With the construction and everything else, what will happen? And after it's done, if it ain't right, what will happen is we'll have water issues again.
Well, I can help, and Bill can correct me if I speak out of turn, but the runoff is a much more observed thing. I can tell you, as someone who did a driveway repair, I had to put in like a 6-foot dry well, and
Yeah, and
the building
I-
department will make sure
But
there's.
I also understand, as people on Winslow Circle will attest to, that the runoff that we get from White Plains Road and the properties up from us
Yep.
is substantial. And any change of that, no matter how much planning you have, could impact not only my house, but all along the northern slope of Winslow Circle. So it's a big concern of mine. I wanted to put that on record. Wish everybody luck. I know whatever way we go, hopefully we go, and hopefully you could fix that if it does. But unfortunately for me, I won't know until it happens, and if it does happen, it's not going to be fixed if it does impact.
Well, thank you for coming up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Comments.
Gary, can you comment?
Can I comment quickly?
Sure.
So I really appreciate your comments. And part of this process is the next level from here, granted everything goes well, is the planning board, at which time we would be speaking about those issues. And also a civil engineer would be involved at that time as well to design a proper drainage system and detain all of the runoff on site. As it stands today, there is no drainage there right now. So you could imagine that hill created by the rock, all the water is falling onto it and then sheet flowing basically onto 22 and neighboring properties. So those issues will certainly be addressed without a doubt. And quite honestly, it's part of the regulation, so we don't have a choice. Now, the one thing that we should also take in mind here is that one of the practices which is not allowed is to just have your leaders go to daylight. So, right now on 240 White Plains Road, those gutters actually just go straight out to daylight onto the driveway split onto 22 and onto the neighbors' lots. And that's quite apparent because there's just black pipe just elbowed out above grade. So hopefully we could address that issue too when time comes. Thank you.
Sure.
Regarding Mr. Beverly's comments, I'd like to just address those as a lawyer. Part of the research was going back in the deeds. I mean, I must have gone back in one property about 100 years, right? And respect to the Beverly property and this property, as we are all coming to realize, or at least I believe it to be so, is the 6B is the unfinished lot. It's my opinion. I think that's a fair opinion. However, the Beverly properties were all part of the Washingtonville subdivision. So had their lawyers, or whatever they were doing with their title company, checked back, they saw the potential with cross easements in the deeds of this development, of this proposal too. Thank you.
That is your opinion, but I could argue the opposite of that opinion, so.
Well, that's how I make a living.
Louis, would you say that this property was never developed because it was impractical because of the rock?
Well, I can say that.
Back
Well,
when
yeah,
everything else?
So in 1985, yes. And like I believe, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but I believe I don't know, not sure. But this portion of 242 White Plains Road is, in fact, rock, right? So that's one reason why I think that they didn't go through this expensive endeavor at the time. The second reason is because in 1985, the interest rates for financing were, I think, between 16 and 18%. So Mr. Rodriguez obviously made his money here, so there was no reason for him to develop this additional lot. But he certainly put it into the infrastructure so that it could eventually be subdivided by the end user.
Was the property just to the north of it, 244, was that originally one lot that got subdivided, or was
No,
those were always
two.
two?
Yes, always two.
Were any of them in that circle subdivided?
No.
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 So to their point, the lot all the way in the far tip on the north side, up further, 240.
Oh, 244.
246.
246.
Is that within your zone?
It's within the A5 zone, yes.
And that's 19,000 square feet?
I believe it's 18,000 square feet.
18,900
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, you gotta
Right.
come up here.
18,900 square feet.
Okay.
But it's not 20,000 square feet.
Understood, but I could argue it is similar in size in some respects.
And the house that's there now is situated within the center of the lot, so you would actually be removing an existing house in the village and adding 2 more
Okay.
houses in the village. But it is less than 20,000 square feet.
Okay, thank you. May I ask a follow-up question? May I ask you a follow-up question? I'm sorry, do you mind coming up? No, I'm sorry, the 242, would you mind coming up? 240, I'm sorry. Yeah, please.
Mr. Beverly?
Mr. Beverly?
Mr. Beverly, that's what I was having, I apologize, sir. I could have looked through this. Just one quick, I know your concern, one of the issues you raised in previous meetings was that blocking out the light into your room. Is that your primary concern here, is the proximity to your house on that side, or is it also the bedrock issue as far as your?
It's all the above, sir.
Okay, so there's no primary concern for you?
No. And
Okay.
it's truly, you know, I purchased the land with the understanding that it had open space and it had green space. And I feel like that's why, and I know there's a lot of discussion whether the amendments were made for shady reasons or done quick. I also did my research, and that's how I found that note and those minutes. And I also looked back for preceding minutes, and I'm not sure, and Lewis possibly can answer this better than I, but I didn't see any minutes from those preceding months. So it wasn't like it wasn't documented, rather it just the minutes were not captured and included in that same binder.
Okay. Thank you for that info.
That's
But no, thank you for clarifying that. I just wanted to see what your primary, so it sounds you're equally concerned about all the issues you've raised. Thank you very much, Mr. Beverly. And I apologize for forgetting your name there.
I have to apologize, but I do have to address these issues. I'll try to do it quickly. So the question about the preceding meetings, I did find all of those, okay? I foiled them, and they should actually be on record in the foil drawer in the clerk's office. But anyway, I understand, and Mr. Beverly made it known that he comes from the Midwest. He's used to rolling hills and, but let's call a spade here. This is the village of Tuckahoe. You don't move here for a rolling front lawn. Okay, you move here for the schools, the proximity to the city, proximity to roadways, the train station, the people.
But just in the meeting notes, you found there was no discussion of it, in your opinion. So you said you did find the meeting notes from prior months.
Yeah. There's no discussion back. I believe I said 6 months.
Louis, in fairness, yes, he didn't move here for rolling hills, but also in fairness, he moved here after the rules were changed in
But did he know that
99.
at that point?
It's immaterial. I would assume he did, but it's really not that
I
important.
think it's a reasonable assumption that when you move in, someone's backyard is not going to become a house.
Well, but at the same time, you can't base your decision on the most expensive investment of your probably whole life on your neighbor's backyard.
I understand, but it's part of when you buy a house. You look around. Let's be honest. When you buy a property, you look at the surrounding properties, and it's part of your decision. I think we need to be fair on that.
Well, I think I could go both ways, but again, that's just my opinion. So the other comment about being a detriment to their family's well-being by putting a house up next to theirs, I find a bit. I find a bit troubling because if we put a house on Lot 6B, that house would actually be located on the north side of 240 White Plains Road. Okay, and for the sake of simplicity, the sun rises in the east, sets in the west, and during the warm months it's somewhat overhead, and during the cold months it falls down to the southern horizon. So Lot 6B, being on the northern side, is physically and scientifically impossible for us to block indirect sunlight from filtering through their windows. Not to mention, I took their considerations, I took their comments into consideration and reconfigured the roof line of the house. Excuse me. Where was I going here?
It was further back.
Yeah, further back. A lot of pages. So previously we had this ridge here, which went all the way across over to the exterior wall here, and I reconfigured that roof line so as to open up as much sky plane as possible to their house. And quite frankly, the line that this creates misses the bottom of their foundation. Meanwhile, there are 10-foot tall arborvitaes blocking their windows already. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, no, fair enough, thanks. Anyone else from the public who would like to speak? Please step forward.
I just want to clarify, Michael Campana, the other son of the applicant, 21 Fairview. I just want to step back to something that was said, but I don't think it was understood clearly, that if, you know, addressing Mr. Beverly's comment that they purchased the house for open space of the neighboring lot, if the property owner today, my parents, wanted to, they could knock down the current house and build to the standards of 1967, since it'd be grandfathered in. And that would be 9-foot setbacks, and what's the square footage? 10,000 square foot house with 9-foot setbacks. The proposed house is 11. So we're actually being more reasonable than we have to be. That's just the one thing I want to say. And then to address the comment about character, if you look, just drive, I'm sure everyone here has driven down that road, the proposed home is strictly meant to fit within the character of this village. If you look at it, 240 White Plains Road is the one that sticks out like the sore thumb. And then to talk about property value, a brand new home that fits the character of the town will do nothing but increase their property value. What is a detriment to their property value at 240 White Plains Road is the lack of maintenance if you drive by that home, with, as it's been said, gutters that are spilling out illegally onto the streetway, which is probably contributing to the water problems on Winslow. So, and then density, I mean, let's not forget that a application was just approved to densify in a separate district, but in Tuckahoe, to put up a 32-unit apartment building.
Let's be clear, it was zoned completely for that, and they could have built well within their rights without a single variance. So let's not go
That is
down that road.
correct. They didn't need to come to us at all.
Okay, fair
They're
enough.
not comparable.
But to say that a single house is going to add undue traffic to a state road is completely unfounded. Completely unfounded. That's all my comments. Thanks.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Anyone else?
Tom Carpenter from 36 Winslow Circle. I have a couple of concerns. I'm kind of brought into this in the 11th hour. Lou came to my home the other evening and asked me to sign a petition. We just met that night for the first time. It was a pleasure speaking to him, as well as always been a pleasure speaking to Mike and his wife. I'm not partial by any means. I would just like the board to consider a couple of things. To echo Mr. DeFucci's concerns, Winslow Circle certainly has a water problem. Every house on a block, you could even check the fire department records, when there is substantial rainfall, they have to come to the bottom of the circle and pump it out. So as far as, I am the corner property that keeps getting referenced, 36 Winslow Circle, my driveway used to be on White Plains Road.
Okay, you're the house I was thinking of then. Okay.
Yes, that's correct, sir. And there was after I spoke with Lou the other day, I told him I'd come to the meeting and try and ascertain all the information I could before I could sign or not sign any documents. Once again, I would like to be a good neighbor to both of my neighbors. I do have concerns, though, and I wish you consider them. The water problem is substantial. You cannot deny that, and Lou and I even spoke about that evening. He made some references to holding wells and being the fact that I redirected my driveway. And just for clarity, I redirected my driveway for safety reasons only. White Plains Road is a terrible place to have a driveway enter or exit. It is a substantial problem. Whoever says differently is probably not giving a clear picture. I closed up that driveway. It was substantial expense, which I didn't plan on spending, for safety reasons only. And as far as traffic records, I could sit there and record accidents daily that happen on White Plains Road. As anybody who lives anywhere near that, and I actually live on Winslow Circle, I just overlook White Plains Road. The stone wall, the original stone wall before the fence went up, has been crashed into multiple times before I lived there, which unfortunately the previous owner wasn't honest about. We found out after the fact. Since I've been there, it's been crashed into multiple times. Having young children, we had to reinforce that wall, correct it, close that driveway up, and come to the front of Winslow Circle. So just to make that clear, people use those driveways as if they're their own personal turning lanes, and we had a drunken driver pulling in one time. It's a problem. You know, you could only imagine. Just sit across the street in a lot at ICS and watch what goes on in those driveways. It won't take you more than an hour to see it's a problem. Getting back to the water issue, Lou and I, once again, we discussed that also. The water issue, having had to redirect my driveway, I had to put some of these holding tanks on my property. They only hold the water. They leach out into the ground. So if you look at the area, lots 6A and 6B proposed, they are the highest part of that area. And Lou and I spoke about that. The water's going to leach out. It's going to make the problem worse. Lou said there was another recommendation. I believe you said there was a storm drain down at the end of 22. I'm sorry, at the end of Winslow Circle. I don't know how that would happen. How would a storm? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lou.
Sorry, you have to address the board, not the other people.
I apologize.
That's okay. It's new to everyone.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm not sure how that would happen. A storm drain going down to the end of another block. I know I wasn't allowed to do that. I had to contain the water on my property, and it was a substantial expense, like we went over. But I just asked you to consider those things, and you know, I wish the Beverleys luck. I wish the Campanas luck. Everybody in our neighborhoods are great neighbors, and I hope we all continue to be great neighbors. That's all I can say. Just please consider my concerns, please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public who would like to speak?
Little statement, you know, Eileen Beverly, 240 White Plains Road. My house isn't up for debate here, so sitting here listening to this, my house is in line with what was happening in 1999 when we bought it 4 years ago. So while I understand that, you know, maybe my house doesn't have new siding, we're a young family. We want the same right to raise our family here for 35 years, similar to the Campanas. And I'd like that right without another house sitting on top of me. And I promised you there are improvements that have been made, and we continue to do that. And as we grow and as we, you know, live in the community, that's our goal. You know, I don't like this. This is super confrontational. I really don't want it to be. But my goal is to build a home for my family that hopefully we could live here for the next 35 years and then, you know, sell it to somebody else who could do the same thing, keeping the property value, if not increasing it. So I just want to make that statement that my house isn't up for debate. So sitting here and hearing that just doesn't feel great.
No one on this board is judging your
No,
house.
totally. I understand, but
I
hearing
agree.
it, like, we're trying. You know, it's not, like you said, it's not cheap to buy into here. It's certainly not cheap to make fixes, but we've done all the little things that we can do, and every single day we look at every single thing that we can do to improve our property and to continue to do that, and I promise you that that's what we'll do.
Good.
Thank you.
No, we appreciate it. And just to make it clear to everyone, the zoning board is here to help everyone, the residents, and looking out for the good of the entire village. So we're not here to hurt anyone. And, you know, we need to keep this on the up and up. I agree with that, and as we go forward. So thank you for your comments. Anyone else from the public who would like to speak?
Larry Marciano, 20 Winslow Circle. I live on the bottom of Winslow Circle. We all have outcroppings of rock under all our basements. There's water that comes off the property on Tara Way since Tara Way was constructed. There was an easement given through with Concordia to a catch basin and bring it over into the sewer, okay? The storm drain, okay, Winslow, okay? The bottom of Winslow is a bird sanctuary. A little strip of land on the bottom, the U, is a bird sanctuary. It floods from the water that comes off of Tara Way. There will always be a water issue because there's always been a water issue since I've been there, since Tara Way was constructed. And I remember Taraway as the old Alfredo property. That's how old I am. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Going once, going twice? Okay, in light of the fact that we received new information this evening, we need to leave the public hearing open. So I'll make a motion to leave the public hearing open. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Mr. Chair, before you adjourn, I know we brought this up before. I think it's very important in this application, the complexity, especially of the planning aspects, that the planner be here.
Agreed.
Legal issues I can deal with Mr. Kerrigan. We'll figure those out, but I think there's a lot of planning issues, and these are our planners, I believe, back in 1999. I think.
Right.
So I think it's important that they're here.
So they're the ones
Yeah,
that create the
originally,
problem.
when you brought that up, I was opposed to it because I didn't want to put a burden of an expense on anyone, but in light of all of the information that has come forward, I would agree with you 100%.
This expense is on who?
It's on the applicant. It's 10-5, 0.2.1. But I think Mr. Williams discussed this with the planner. I think they're going to keep they understand it's a single family, and they're going to keep the rates.
Right, but that's the point. Is it even necessary for a single-family dwelling?
I think in this one, it might be, unfortunately.
For the zoning board or the planning board?
Well, I think both. I think they're overlapping.
Oh, so, okay, we're going to pay it twice.
Yeah.
Do they pay it twice, or they pay it one time?
No.
Well, it's multiple. It's the same issues, basically. It's going to be the same issues.
Can I clarify? When we vote for this, we're voting for everything at once. We're voting for the lot size and the setbacks, potential variances. It's not a step function. We're not voting for one, then come back for another, because I would like to say I would prefer to vote in totality of the project versus
I'll have to think about that one.
pieces of it, because I think, for instance, let's say we
Because
approve
you
the
can't
lot.
get variances with a lot that doesn't exist. The planning board's going to have to approve that lot, so they may say no.
Right,
No,
and you
but-
come back again for a second time with a
Right.
house. Now, we were advised to do that before the December meeting by the building department. We split up the application. That was the intent.
Right.
But because of what the confusion that caused, and after meeting again with Bill and Gary, and Mr. Ringwald, your comment, we re-implemented the house so that it would be more clear for you, and you know what you'd be voting on.
Good, but I guess I'm glad that Member Scalzo asked for clarification, because I was of the understanding that now this was going to be a joint, both the split and the variances.
That's right, yes.
And the variance will be on the existing house also, that we would be voting on and everything.
Absolutely, yeah.
May I ask, though, I am somewhat uncomfortable with the idea of creating more financial difficulty for them by making them pay for a planner if we don't even need to get to that stage. For the planner, we're talking about the traffic issue,
Right.
and that's pretty much it, correct? Okay. I mean, I don't know, I'll leave it up to Chairman Ringwald, but I mean, I'm comfortable looking through this without the planner at this point, because it feels like I don't want him to have to go down that road of paying until everyone on this board, if that's going to make a difference. But I will leave it up to Chairman Ringwald.
Well, as I stated, originally I was opposed to it. I need to think and speak to Gary. I prefer not to put the burden of expense on you. But I'd also like to make sure that we give you a fair assessment here.
That's what we want.
So I would prefer, rather than you going down the road of paying for a planner, I don't know if Chairman Ringwald agrees, I would prefer to make a decision based on what's in front of us. We've discussed this ad nauseum, and I feel like we have sufficient information with what we have here, but that is my personal opinion.
Thank you. I believe so. Is that all? Any questions?
Again, we left the public hearing open. There was nobody left. No, I have no further questions at this time. Thank you. Good presentation. Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, appreciate your time.
Motion to adjourn or something?
Yes, we need to. Seeing no further business, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and good night, Tuckahoe.